The last class, what is the reinforced concrete design means, what is the reinforcement means, what is the concrete is, what is the design means. Thereafter, we discuss that that should be proper control of the cement, sand, and aggregate and the water. We cannot mix water as per your wish. There should be proper water cement ratio to have good strength. Once we mix the water in the dry mix of the aggregate, cement and sand, it becomes in the plastic stage. It become plastics. Plastic in the sense it is easy to flow. Thereafter, we have discussed the various properties of fresh concrete, such as workability, consistency, and then also we have discussed uh, some property of hardened concrete, such as characteristic strength. I will discuss some other properties, such as Young modulus, Poisson ratio of a concrete. Young modulus or modulus of elasticity is a uh, property of hardened concrete through which we can see up to which stress and strain is behaving linearly. If we see the definition of Young modulus or modulus of elasticity is the ratio of stress versus strain in the linear zone. So let me show you some graph. So here you just see, if you plot the stress and strain in the left side graph is basically for a mild steel, and right side graph is for the brittle materials such as concrete. So what happens if you plot stress and strain? So stress basically we plot in the vertical axis and strain we plot in the horizontal axis. So if you plot stress and strain initially, you will find the initial portion is linear, so it is a straight line, and up to certain point that stress is proportional to strain. So that point is basically called the proportional limit or the elastic limit. But problem is that most of the material do not show that proportional limit or elastic limit. So it is very difficult to get. We have to get that Young modulus from the initial portion only. So here you just see for this brittle material in the right side graph, you see that its graph is almost non-linear in nature from the beginning. So it is very difficult to get that proportional, and there is no such proportional limit or the elastic limit. Okay, so what we have to do now? We have to draw a tangent at the initial portion of the graph, and so that we can get some ratio of the stress and strain, or you can say that angle of this tangent. From that angle basically indicate your initial tangent modulus or Young modulus or modulus of elasticity. Okay, so I was discussing that most of the metal normally shows linear portion, and it is easy for us to get the elastic limit or Young modulus. But there are many material in which we cannot get that straight line. So from you just see from the right side graph, it is very difficult to get the straight line. In such case, either you have to use initial tangent modulus, or you will find there are many terms in the literature that is called only the tangent modulus or the secant modulus. So there is a basic difference between the initial tangent modulus, and the secant modulus. We will see in the next slide what are the basic difference between the initial tangent modulus, and the secant modulus. So right now we have discussed that Young modulus is the uh, ratio of stress versus strain in the linear zone, and up to which stress is proportional to strain is called the proportional limit or the elastic limit. Most of the material do not possess or do not show elastic limit, so it is very difficult. So what we have to do? We have to get a tangent. We have to get a tangent from the initial portion of the stress strain curve, and you have to use that tangent for linear analysis. If you want to go for non-linear analysis, then we have to use the tangent modulus or secant modulus. So we'll see what is the basic difference between the initial tangent modulus, and the secant modulus. Here you just see that the stress strain is non-linear nature. So what happens if you draw a tangent from the initial portion of the graph is called the initial tangent modulus. We represent as here EI. So this graph is here EI. That initial tangent modulus also sometimes called short-term elastic modulus, because that modulus we are used for linear analysis in concrete also. And tangent modulus, basically the difference between initial tangent modulus and tangent modulus is that initial tangent modulus we draw the tangent at the initial portion of the graph, and for the tangent modulus we can draw at any point and we get the slope, and from the slope we can find the what is the tangent modulus. Now another term is the secant modulus. Secant modulus is basically a straight line which connects the 2 points. The term secant means a straight line that intersect a curve in the 2 point or the more point. So for this stress strain graph, we can have the secant modulus between the 2 point. So first point we normally choose the initial point, and second point we can choose any other point. So here we assume the P point where we just draw that one tangent. So if you connect the 2 point initial point and the origin point and the P point, that straight line or the slope of the straight line is called the secant modulus. You can see from the graph that initial tangent modulus is basically is coming from the beginning or the straight line, or you can say from the linear zone. But tangent modulus and secant modulus we are getting from the non-linear zone. So from there you can get one idea that if you want to go for linear analysis, the initial tangent modulus is sufficient for you. In this concrete design, we will go through the initial tangent modulus only. We will use only initial tangent modulus. If anybody want to go for non-linear analysis, then he should use tangent modulus or the secant modulus. Here you just see from the graph you can find that initial tangent modulus normally come higher than the tangent modulus or the secant modulus, and secant modulus sometimes give reasonable result when we connect the 2.1 in the origin and another 1/3 of the maximum compressive strength value. Suppose FCK is 20, so that 20 by 3 it is coming 6.33. So if you connect the 2 point, one is the origin and another stress at the stress of 6.33, and that line you will get the slope basically is your give a secant modulus, and the secant modulus value is really reasonable, or you can see which is in comparison to your initial tangent modulus is very accurate, or you can see accurate, or it will be better to use term acceptable. Secant modulus basically we use for non-linear analysis, or you can say whenever you will find that linear analysis or linear or initial tangent modulus is not giving proper result. In that case we should go for secant modulus. So since for the concrete the graph is non-linear almost from the beginning, it is very difficult to get the Young modulus. So IS code come up with the idea of that Young modulus is equal to 5000 root under FCK. So suppose you conducted one test and you got the characteristic strength value, or you can see if you know the grade of concrete, from there you can find what is the value of initial tangent modulus or Young modulus. So initial tangent modulus, many of book write EC, so I also denoted EI or EC, or that EI or EC, that basically initial Young modulus or modulus of elasticity is equal to 5000 root under FCK. So this is the property of the concrete, or you can say there are many modulus, initial tangent modulus, secant modulus, and the tangent modulus, and from there we will choose initial tangent modulus for our concrete design purpose, and the value of this initial tangent modulus is 5000 root under FCK. Now, if you come to the Poisson ratio is basically a ratio of the lateral strain versus longitudinal strain. The lateral strain in the sense, if you have one member and you are applying some compressive force, so what will happen? The member will try to get shortened in this direction, but it will try to expand along this direction. So that strain which is occurring in this direction, so what you have to do? You have to put that strain gauge or strain indicator so that you can measure the strain along this direction and another strain indicator along this direction. So if you measure the strain along lateral direction and the strain along the longitudinal directions, if you take the ratio, that ratio is called the Poisson ratio. For the concrete, the Poisson ratio basically comes in the range of 0.1 to 0.3. Now for the design purpose, we will use 0.2 as a Poisson ratio for the concrete. Now there is another phenomena for the concrete, that is the creep. Creep is basically a long-term deformation under the constant load. Suppose you have one structure and load is constant and you are not increasing the load. In that case also you will find that the member of the structure is getting deformed. That phenomenon is called the creep. The creep basically is influenced by the many parameters such as grade of concrete, magnitude of the stress which is acting on the structures, and how much duration it is acting, what is the age of the concrete, what is the water cement ratio, what is the humidity, and the temperature of the curing also affect the creep. Now there is another phenomena that is called the shrinkage. Shrinkage is basically your contraction in its volume due to the loss of water. So one phenomenon we got, that is creep. Creep is basically deformation under the constant load, that is long-term phenomena. Shrinkage also is short-term as well as the long-term. We will discuss all the part. So basically the definition of the shrinkage is the loss of volume due to the loss of water, or you can say the contraction of volume due to the loss of water. If the shrinkage strain is more than the tensile strain of the concrete, then there will be crack on the concrete surface, and that crack sometimes affect the structures. Also, now let me discuss the different type of shrinkage. Shrinkage can be plastic shrinkage, there can be autogenous shrinkage, there can be your drying shrinkage and the carbonation shrinkage. So plastic shrinkage is basically indicating the shrinkage which is occurring when the concrete is in the plastic range before set. In that time, the plastic shrinkage basically is the contraction of the volume to the loss of water in the fresh concrete. So when if you add water in that, during that time, that concrete become fresh, or fresh concrete we used to say, and the fresh concrete there is a loss of water and due to the environmental conditions, and this loss of water lead to the volume contraction. Major phenomenon is that when the surface become more dry, or even the surface dry rate is more than the bleeding of the concrete, in that case plastic shrinkage is occur. For example, if you consider the slab or the floor, in that case that surface area is more and water also try to evaporate very quickly, and you will find that most of the cases and you will find that many cases that there is surface crack occur in the concrete in the beginning stage. That is because of the plastic shrinkage. That shrinkage that I already discussed, that when this shrinkage, not only the plastic shrinkage, if the total shrink in the sense plastic shrinkage, autogenous shrinkage, drying shrinkage, and carbon shrinkage. If we take the cumulative effect of this shrinkage, and if the shrinkage strain is more than the tensile strain of the concrete, in that case crack will occur in the concrete. So autogenous shrinkage occur when we add water to the cement. When you add water to the cement react with the water, and that process is called the hydration process. And during this process there is a water loss, and that shrinkage is occurring due to this water loss or due to this hydration process is called the autogenous shrinkage. The autogenous term means which is occurring within the body. So it is saying that the shrinkage which is occurring within the body without any external influence, or you can say that shrinkage is not influenced by the other environmental factors such as wind speed, temperature, and other parameters. Now come to the drying shrinkage. Drying shrinkage is defined as a contraction of volume in the hardened concrete due to the loss of capillary water. So what happens if we add water on the dry mix of cement and an aggregate? There will be cement paste, and within the cement paste, capillary pore usually exist, and in the capillary pore, water also exists, and this water basically evaporate in the long term. Water loss which is occurring due to the capillary water or loss of capillary water is called the drying shrinkage. This drying shrinkage basically continuous process and everlasting process. Since capillary water usually exists and it evaporate very slowly, and it is also continuous. And for the same reason, drying shrinkage is also slow and the continuous process. And the drying shrinkage value is coming high if you add more water. If the water segment is high, more than 0.42, in that case, there will be more capillary pores, and that the capillary pores can be well connected, and there will be more water loss. The water loss which is occurring to the capillary water is called the drying shrinkage. Now we have another term is called the carbonation shrinkage. Carbonation shrinkage occur when basically concrete react with the atmospheric carbon dioxide, and during that process there will be volume shrinkage, and this volume shrinkage is called the carbonation shrinkage. This carbonation shrinkage can be controlled if there is less pores. If you care properly, you can see if the concrete is low permeable, in that case there will be less amount of carbon dioxide which can penetrate the concrete. In that case there will be less amount of carbonation shrinkage. So now here we have learned there is a 4 type of shrinkage. One is that plastic shrinkage and autogenous shrinkage. So basically autogenous shrinkage will occur first, and then there will be plastic shrinkage, and then there will be drying shrinkage, and there will be carbonation shrinkage. So here you can see the some shrinkage or volume shrinkage is instantaneous, some are continuous, and there is some overlap also. You can see the drying shrinkage and carbonation shrinkage is continuous, and there is overlap. So it is very difficult for us to distinguish the which shrinkage is occurring how much. So if you are not able to distinguish between the shrinkage, then IS code specified that if you don't have any other informations, you are not able to distinguish. In that case, the total volume shrinkage can be considered as 0.003. So total volume shrinkage, in the sense you have to consider the cumulative effect of autogenous shrinkage, plastic shrinkage, drying shrinkage, and the carbonation shrinkage. Consider all the shrinkage value, and the total shrinkage you have to consider 0.003 for a design purpose. Now, if you see what is the effect of the shrinkage on the structure, basically you will find that the shrinkage do not affect the structural performance. It will not affect the load deformation graph, deflections, you can say. But what will happen? Can be crack on the surface, and then that crack may also propagate, and from that crack, basically water leakage may occur. You will find in many buildings, the top floor building, there is some water crack used to happen in. Basically, that is causes because of shrinkage. Due to shrinkage strain, when the shrinkage strain becoming more than the tensile strain, there will be surface crack, and surface crack may also penetrate through the depth, and different crack may connect together. So there will be well connected crack, and when the water comes, the water may passes through the top surface to the bottom surface, and there will be leakage of water. So we should take proper care not to have much shrinkage. The shrinkage can be controlled in many ways. One is that if you add admixture, then that to reduce the shrinkage. So you have to see what are the different admixtures available to prevent the drying shrinkage. Another thing you can do, you can basically while casting the concrete, you have to water the hardened concrete at least for 28 days. You can create pond there for the water, or you can use the geotextile water saturated geotextile sheet. There are other thing also you can do while casting the concrete. You can do one thing. You can pre-cool the aggregate by keeping in the shade, or you can add cooling water in that aggregate. You can do the cooling of the cement. You can add ice in that water, so that water also become cool. you will find the shrinkage will be more if you cast it in the daytime. So you can do one thing, either you can cast early morning or late afternoon, so that shrinkage can be reduced. One more thing you can do, you can create sunsets or temporary walls so that wind speed can be controlled. Or other thing you can do, you can spray that, you can use the fog spray so that you can keep the humidity high. If the surrounding humidity of the concrete is high, then there will be low loss of water, so shrinkage can be controlled. So I already said that that all the four phenomena of the shrinkage, autogenous shrinkage, plastic shrinkage, drying shrinkage, and the carbonation shrinkage is some are instantaneous, some are continuous. So it is very difficult to distinguish which shrinkage is affecting how much and which time it will affect. So IS code is recommending that you just consider shrinkage strength as 0.003 for your design purpose. Till now I have discussed many property of fresh concrete, many property of hardened concrete. Let me discuss some property of reinforcement bar. Inside bottom graph is showing that your stress strain curve for mild steel. You will find that there is some distinguish between the behavior of mild steel and the HOSD bar. I'll discuss all these things. So here in the stress we have plotted in the right vertical axis, and strain we have plotted in the horizontal axis. So if you plot the stress strain curve for the mild steel, you will get this type of graph. So here A, basically it is showing here proportional limit. See, in that definition of Young modulus, I have defined that in the up to which the stress and strain is proportional is called the proportional limit. So up to a point, that line is coming a straight line, that A is called a proportional limit. So once you apply more force to the bar, if you apply more tensile force in the bar, then the stress will reach to the B, and that B point is called the yield stress. Basically what will happen at this point B, yielding of the material will start. Basically at this point material will have a permanent deformation. So basically the difference between your elastic limit and yield limit is that in the elastic limit, if you release the load, suppose you try to pull that steel bar, and if you release the load, what will be in the if you apply the load up to limit A, then the rod will come to its original position because it's in the elastic range. But if you apply more load, then it will reach to the B point, and at the B point there will be some sort of permanent deformation. It cannot come back to the original position. That B point is basically you call the yield stress, or even the upper yield point. Now if you continue the loading, in that case what will happen, that you will find after the upper yield point the material is so that lower yield point, the C point. And if you continue loading, what will happen, you will find that when the material reaches the C point, there will be deformation, large deformation without much changing in the load. So here this CD line will be straight. The C is called basically lower yield point. So once the material reaches the lower yield point, there will be some deformation, large deformation without changing much load. That is called basically plastic. So in the concrete also you learn the term plastic. Plastic is basically in which it can deform easily. Okay, so in fresh concrete is called the plastic concrete because fresh concrete can be deformed easily. Here also, that when the mild steel basically reach the point C, in that point if you apply small load, or if you keep the load constant, in that case also that material will deform largely. It is so large deformation. That is basically this CD point is called the plastic deformation. At this point, basically what will happen, you will find that there will be necking in the bar. So if you see the bar, and at some point there will be some necking. The necking you can see that above figure. This yielding is the failure of the material in the shear along the 45-degree plane of the maximum shear. So if you apply load, so there will be some shear force will develop, and this yielding basically will occur at the angle of 45 degree with the maximum shear force. What happened between the C and D? In between the C and D loader band, that also we call the slip band is to occur. and due to this loader band or the slip band, the metal deform very high volume that I already discussed. That deformation is basically, if you see the strain, that is strain between the C and D. If you draw a vertical line from the C, it will intersect that strain axis, and if you draw a vertical line from D, it will intersect the D, that strain axis. So basically you will find that epsilon C and epsilon D value is coming more than the epsilon B value. So whatever the strain till now occur, that strain will be low in comparison to the strain which is occurring in the plastic limit or plastic deformation. Now what happens if you try to apply more load? That time the steel bar will regain some strain, that is basically called the hardening of the bar. And if you try to continue the loading, it will reach the E point, that is called the ultimate load method. Basically ultimate load is basically maximum load up to which it can ultimate load, basically the maximum load it can carry. E point is basically the maximum load which it can carry. Now if you continue loading, it will reach to the point F, where basically there will be final failure of the bar. There will be two parts of the bar. Now here two curve, one is the DEF curve and one is the DF dash curve. So DEF curve basically is coming when you consider the initial area. Suppose you measure the area at the beginning and you are keeping that constant throughout the testing. In that case, you will get the graph DEF. But if you measure the area, or you can say actual area, so while if you try to pull it, the diameter also will try to get reduced. If you measure the reduced diameter every time, then and if you plot the stress strain curve, in that case you will get the graph of DF dash. That is called the true stress, or you can say true stress strain diagram. So these are the property of your mild steel. Basically here, it is easy for you to get your Young modulus, because initial portion is coming as a straight line, so it is very easy for you to get the Young modulus. The Young modulus is coming in the range of 200 GPa, that I will discuss. Now if you see that what is the basic difference between the mild steel and other steel or HYSD bar, basically you will find that in the concrete design we're normally using three types of steel. One is the Fe250 mild steel bar, Fe415 bar and Fe500 bar. Okay. Now basic difference between the mild steel or Fe250 bar and the Fe415 and Fe500 bar is that in case of HYSD bar, high strength bar, HYSD high yield strength bar, basically do not show any yield point. Okay, so here from the graph you can see that if you plot it, so the bottom one graph is for the Fe250, second one is the Fe415 and next is the Fe500. Since it do not show any yield point, in that case it is very difficult to get the yield strength. Now what happens if you do not get definite yield point for this high yield strength deform bar? In that case, basically we refer to the proof stress. We try to find what is the proof stress for this HYSD bar. Proof stress is basically nothing but a reference stress which causes a small but permanent deformation in the bar. This also is called the offset yield stress. This proof stress is defined basically as a stress which is needed to produce 0.2% of plastic deformations. So what happened? What we used to do, since this proof stress is also called that offset yield stress, we try to draw an offset which is coming parallel to your proportional limit, or you can see Young modulus, initial straight line. So this graph basically offset yield straight line basically draw, which is parallel to the proportional limit graph, or you can say the linear portion of the stress strain curve. So if you draw an offset of it, and you have to see at which point it is intersecting, from there we can try to find what is the yield value. So now for the steel, basically there can be different grade of steel. but most commonly Fe250, Fe415 and Fe500 are used. Though it is a different grade of steel, but Young modulus or modulus of elasticity is coming same for the all the material. It is coming nearly 200 GPa. So if you conduct test for mild steel, if you conduct test for HOSD bar, Fe415 or Fe500, all the cases will find that Young modulus or modulus of elasticity is coming nearly 200 GPa. So see here Fe415 and Fe500 is basically nothing but the what is the yield strength of that. Fe415 shows that yield strength Fe 415 Newton per millimeter square, and for the 500 it shows as your yield strength of 500 Newton per millimeter square. If you want to know what more about this mild steel and HOSD bar, you can go to the IS code of IS 432 or IS 1786. Now one more difference is that between the Fe415, Fe500 and the mild steel is that in case of mild steel bar is deformed bar. Basically you will find reeve is there in the surface of the Fe415 bar and Fe500 bar. That is not exist in the mild steel bar. This is the basic difference, physical difference you can see, and you can identify whether this is mild steel or your HOSD bar. First thing is that if you reeve is there, it basically will indicate it is the HOSD bar. For mild steel, you don't have any reeve. Another thing is that you have to do testing. From the testing, you can see what is the your yield value is coming. What is your yield value of this your Fe415? What is the yield value or 500 and Fe250? From that also you can judge what is the grade of the steel. Now till now we have discussed about what we are getting by conducting some experiment on the mild steel or by doing some tensile test on HOSD bar. Now for the design purpose, what IS code recommend, we will see. Here you will find that IS code use one factor of safety, that value is 1.15. So what it is saying? It is saying that if we assume that factor of safety of 1.15, okay, that time that basically yield strength is coming 0.87 Fy, that indicate that whatever the yield value is coming through the experiment, you can use 87% of it. Okay, so initially we are idealizing it. Initially we are assuming that material will we are limiting the strength of that steel till yield strength, not the ultimate strength. So if you conduct test, so initially from the graph you can find that material is reaching yield strength at point B, but it can carry more load. It has some capacity to carry more load till point E, or you can say ultimate load point, a maximum load carrying capacity. But IS code is limiting that value. It is saying okay, you use up to yield strength, and then also he is using one factor of safety, that is 1.15. So whatever the yield strength value you are getting, it is saying that you do one thing, you just assume 87% of the yield strength and you use it for your design purpose. So right side graph here, you see that Fy is the characteristic curve, that basically idealized characteristic curve, because idealized in the sense we are not assuming or we are not using the data which is coming up to yield point. So we are idealizing up to yield value, and then also we are applying one factor of safety, and from there we are getting the design curve. So design curve, which is basically the design value which we are using for our design purpose in the reinforced concrete structure. So this is the things are there for the material, for the concrete and for the steel. You should know before going to the reinforced concrete design. So now in the next class, I will try to discuss about the working stress method, what is the limit state method, what is the basic difference between ultimate load method, okay, and why still many designers are using working stress method for bridge design, water tank design, okay, and why building you are using limit state method. You will find that limit state method is justified, okay, than the other two methods. So we learn all the things in the next lecture. Thank you.